Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, a podcast where I take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knutson. Come along with me on this week's adventure. I am really excited about this guest because he's somebody that I actually have wanted to have on the show for quite a while, and it just hasn't come about. But there is no time like the present, as we know. Today, we are delving into the adventures of Brian Seech. Now, a lot of you guys will recognize that name. You've probably seen him on countless shows like Monsters and Mysteries in America, on Destination America. He was featured in the independent film Mountain Devil, The Search for Frank Peterson. And a little bit of a trivia note, he was actually an extra in the Mothman Prophecies when they filmed in Pittsburgh, which is cool. But he also appeared he's been on every radio show imaginable, and he's a member of the Butler organization on research of the unexplained, and a former member and an investigator of a MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, of course. He has co-wrote articles for the Creature Chronicles column in Hancock County Courier, and he's a co-instructor for the first ever cryptozoology class at Eastern Gateway College in Ohio. I mean, you can't get much better than that. He's been at this a really long time, and he's got some really interesting stories about very strange creatures that I can't wait to get into because he's a lot of fun to talk with. I know he's got some amazing stories for us, guys, so let's get this going. Okay, so I am so excited to get into this subject with you because not only, as I was saying off camera, that I've been looking forward to talking with you for quite a while, but this is by far probably one of the most passionate subjects that I have in parapsychology and all of that for the last 25 years. So, Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, hey, no, thank you for having me. It'll be interesting.
Always. Like, I mean, you can't delve into this rabbit hole without it not being interesting. I mean, it's so I think mischaracterized, so almost untouched in a way because we're really strapped with a lot of television show myths and misrepresentations and so on and so forth around this subject. So. With all your field research, because I mean you've been doing this a really, really long time.
Yeah, 40 years. Actually,
40 years. Yeah,
40 years this year for Q, our Q group. Yeah,
that's incredible. And I mean, primarily, did you start out with Bigfoot in mind, and this has just expanded, or how has this started for you?
Well, basically, I grew up, child of the 70s, so I watched all the documentaries In Search of, Boggy Creek Monster, things like that.
The good era.
Yeah, I wish I was back in that era. It was more real then. There's a lot of fake stuff out there now, but I started out reading all the UFO magazines at the time. So I started kind of in the UFO field, and then I found out, hey, wait, there's Bigfoot in conjunction with UFOs too. And then I always watched all the monster movies, sci-fi movies. So I still do. I'm a big sci-fi geek. We just saw Disclosure Day last week. So
nice.
So I've always been interested in all that, but always been interested in Bigfoot the most. And that goes along with the other cryptids, in which we'll be talking about Dogman soon, but there's just so much about Bigfoot out there. Just seen in practically, most countries in the world, basically almost the same thing, giant ape-like creature. And we've talked to our share of witnesses. Now, we've never seen anything, unfortunately. We've heard some weird screams, some things, places where we were uncomfortable, found some, like a one imprint to here, one there. Never quite what you want, but we did hear the Ohio howl down at Beaver Creek State Park. And I'll actually be going back down there this month or next month. Next month in July, so another camp out. The Dog Man actually did, it did come later. It's still one of the newer things we've done. I believe our first case was 2017 because we've been doing this since 80. 86 is our Q group when we founded that. So we've only been doing dogman research since about 86, which is still what, like 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And not 86, 2016 maybe?
2016
or
would be 10.
2017.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, about 10. And I'll be honest, out of everything that we talk about and we research and we do presentations, I'll be doing one here in a couple weeks in Ohio. When we mention Dogman, and specifically myself and my friend Fred Saluga, he passed in December, and Terry, we were the only three around here talking about Dogman at that time. We really were. Because of obviously Linda Godfrey, she's the one that started all this with
Of course.
Beast of Bray Road. And Jody Cook is another one who's a friend of ours. He's been doing it in Ohio longer than us. And when I first saw it, I'm like, we actually lived at a place called in Mercer County. Currently we live in Weirton, West Virginia. And if anybody wants to know where that is, if you see Ohio on this side and then PA, we're that little sliver in between.
Gotcha.
And
Yes.
we always say that we're on the tip of the middle finger of West Virginia. That's where we live now. So,
Fantastic.
and we used to live in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, most of our lives. So, but when we first heard about it, we lived in Mercer at the time, and I'm like, wow. No, we didn't. We were out of Mercer we were in Mercer for 3 years, and we found out when we never heard about it there. Hey, did you know there was a Shenango Valley werewolf? This would have been in Mercer County. Didn't know anything about it when we were up there. So long story, we start researching it, and some stories started to come out about the Shenango Dog Boy, which we actually got that on Monsters and Mysteries in America, but they
Remember that.
kind of butchered it a little bit.
Yeah.
And,
it's TV. They're going to do it.
Yeah. And like you were on that Wendigo show. You did a good job on that. I like that.
Thank you very much.
And they wanted it to be like a real wolf boy. And when I interviewed for that segment, I told them the truth. I said, I don't believe it's a wolf boy. I don't believe it's a monster. I believe it was a child, a deformed child, because he had like hoofs instead of hands. He had an eye condition, who had hypertrichosis, which is commonly called werewolf syndrome. And that's what I believed that it was. And that is what I told the people. I told the interviewers, but of course that's not going to make it, because that's not, when I talked to the producer the one time, I asked him, I said, are these stories real? And he says, well, we sensationalize, right? He said, the core of the stories are true, but they sensationalize it. Like, okay, so someone's driving down the road, they saw this thing run across the road. Not exciting, right? But if the guy, runs across the road, the guy stops, he gets out and this creature attacks him, that's what they wanted. That's what Monsters and Mysteries in America wanted. And so they're not totally lying to you. They're just making the story interesting. When I imagine, like looking back and watching some of the episodes, I'm like, well, I could see a person seeing that, but then they kind of, they steered the interview towards terror. And so you have to watch about like what you say. Even if you say the right things, they're going to cut and piece together what they want.
Well, honestly, that's I quit one of the TV shows because of that, because it's exactly what happened. And I've told this story on air a pile of times, but I mean, like I've been doing TV for a really, really long time, and I've declined more shows than I've accepted because for exactly what you're talking about. Because I mean, I firmly believe that this is people like you and I, we've got a platform, and we've been gifted that platform by our audience, by people that feel that we're worth listening to, and I know you feel the same way, and many of our colleagues feel the same way, that people don't deserve to be lied to about this subject matter. And so much of this subject matter, whether it be Dogman or Bigfoot or anything like that, is such a wonderful subject matter to get into. It's not something that is terrifying and horrible and monstrous and all of these things. Is that there's an element of consciousness research in here. There's so many layers to this that for a lot of these shows to glorify almost I want to say violence, but in a way it's violence with these cryptids, so-called, being vicious towards people in instances where that's just not happening.
Yes. Most of the times they just run away, and especially your Bigfoot. Now, Bigfoot have been known to growl, throw rocks, sticks, things like that. But most people believe that's just, they're trying to warn you, just trying to get you out of their home base is how I like to call it. Their home. It's their home, not ours. We're just in it, and they don't want us there. Believe me, I think if these things if they really wanted to hurt you, there'd be a lot of dead people in the woods with big rocks marks on their head. I really believe that, but I think they're just trying to get you out of there. The dog man a little more different, little more malevolence. I guess that's the word. A little more fear in some of their sightings. I don't know 100% sure if anyone's ever been attacked or killed. Now we've all heard the Land Between the Lakes story. I hope to pray to God that that's just not true, because there was a family massacre. You know the story, and you probably told it on many times. And I'm hoping that maybe there was just something there that scared them out of there, and then it got to be, oh no, it was a murder, and stories get bigger and bigger, and let's all pray that actually didn't happen as the way that it was portrayed.
Yeah, I think at least the current theory with Land Between the Lakes, which I thought was interesting, was that if indeed it happened the way the story has said it's happened, that there might have been a gugway involved in it, which I thought was really intriguing, because it would fit the description of the shorter snout with the smaller ears, with feet instead of like paw-looking feet. And I thought it was an interesting. It was a really interesting theory, because I know in all of my years of research and my personal experiences with dogmen and stuff like that, I've definitely encountered more fear from them than anything. Even though my experiences, like, they're very intense, and I can understand, like, when people run into them, like, why they're frightened, because it's intimidating. But I've definitely found, and I mean, maybe this is just coming from my own personal bias, because I've got a thing for unloved creatures. Like, I just always have, and I know in my personal encounters with them, they are very curious. They seem very curious, but they're immensely afraid. So any aggression and whatnot that I've seen hasn't really been aggression, but rather defensive. And I think that seems to, and what I've seen in a lot of the TV shows, is that seems to get very misrepresented. Where people they're confronted by them. The people are afraid. The dog man starts growling. Well, if you confront a dog and you're afraid of the dog starts growling like that. They're picking up on that energy and that dynamic. They don't know what's going on. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that, because that's just one of the aspects of this that's always really caught my attention.
Well, I think we've received maybe 17, 18 reports. That number's pretty close. It might not be exactly the number, but it's really close. Most of the encounters that we get down here are people see them and they're turning around, walking away, or they might growl, look at them very menacingly. And then just not one of them have been, oh, this thing like chased me, or this thing was out to get me, because let's face it, with a lot of these cryptids, how big and fast, if they really wanted to get you, there'd be a lot of dead people in these woods. I mean, right? I do believe it.
Yeah, so, you bet.
The media, they sell fear. Let's face it, on anything they do. And because, like, when we give presentations, I tell most people, most of our encounters, or eyewitness encounters, because we've never seen any cryptid, unfortunately, they've been short, quick, non-threatening. And I don't want to say boring, because I wish I can get one boring encounter where something's running across the...
That's the right kind of boring. Yeah.
Yeah, but with that, and that's what I tell people. I mean, there's been, a couple that they've stayed around a little bit, a couple we had a rock thrown at us down at Beaver Creek on the hill. And we ran up, me and Dave, my friend, we ran up to the hill to try to see what was up there, and there was nothing. Of course, we were like, God, this is maybe about 7, 8 years ago. So we were just a little bit younger, but we still weren't young enough to run up that hill in like 2 seconds or anything. It still took us, a couple minutes, and whatever's up there, just probably just, if it was something, we always say someone or something threw a rock
Yeah. Yeah.
at us. Yeah. And, but yeah, normally they're not aggressive per se, but they have a menacing look. Like people said this thing seemed like it looked through you. Like it was like looking through your soul, or I was scared. Maybe that's a defense mechanism. Like, a skunk uses the spray and Bigfoot allegedly uses infrasound. Maybe these creatures can have a fear factor that they can shoot at. I mean, let's face it. If you're seeing a giant wolf 7, 8 foot tall on 2 legs, sometimes yellow, amber, red eyes looking at you, that is enough to scare anybody. And what people tell us is, they say it looked like a Hollywood werewolf, as that's what we hear over and over, a Hollywood werewolf.
Yeah. That was
And
my experience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Like, that's the one thing. And out of all my encounters with them, that was probably the most striking part. Like you mentioned, not only the stare down, but what I found really interesting about the stare, and I'll address the appearance after, but it is very, very intense, very little blinking. So it is very intense. But the way I took that was almost as if it was looking for connection. I guess, and as I say, I guess I come from a bit of a different ilk, because I've always had reptiles in my life, and I've always sort of had people facing the stigma. Like I've got a little python and whatnot, and he's the most amazing little boy in the world. Like he's so.
I see you posting.
Yeah.
I will admit, I'm not a fan of snakes.
Yeah. He's so beautiful, and he's so wonderful, and he's so smart, and he's so kind. And I get the people that, even like if we're out for a walk or anything like that, and immediately it's just like, well, aren't you afraid he's going to eat you? And I see that same stigma with these encounters, often with dogmen. So when I had the few encounters that I had, because I've had a few, that was the one thing I really noticed about them, was that once you kind of put aside the instinctual, oh my God, what the hell, like I should be frightened of this. Once you put aside that instinctual shit, there was this feeling of connection, like they were trying to connect. So it changed my energy when I was interacting with them. And I found it very much changed it for the positive, where it went from them being, on high alert to nervous to something that became a lot calmer. And I mean, and I don't want to say like calm, like, I could run up and scratch them on the nose, but it lowered the intensity of, of the experience. And to your point about the appearance, that was one of the things that really got me, where, here all of the TV shows like we've been talking about are portraying them like gargoyles with drool and whatever. And it was one of the most beautiful wolf faces I've ever seen. He was beautiful. He had a beautiful timber wolf looking face, and he was stunning. And it just, to your point, like the description looks like a Hollywood werewolf without the terror factor,
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what your eyewitnesses have seen as well?
Yeah, and the eyewitnesses basically, they'll say Hollywood werewolf. Some of them have said, take the biggest wolf out there, and I don't know if that's the gray wolf or the red. I don't really remember.
Sure, yeah.
About that. And pick it up, put it on 2s.
Yeah.
It walks on 2s fluidly, and that's what they're seeing.
Yep.
And
yep.
I tell you, when we first started talking about it, what we actually did is we took it to the libraries. We took the Shenango Valley to the libraries. We had the drawings, and we took it. And there were some in the field who, I don't want to say they're enemies, but they're not friends. They laughed at it. Okay. But once they saw people were starting to talk, wow, these guys are talking about werewolves. These guys, we brought it to the public here.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Then they're like, all of a sudden, "Oh, wait, I got a report." And now they wanted to cash in on that. So they start talking about it, and they still kinda laugh at it, but I'm like, "We're not saying we saw anything, people. All we are is a conduit. Here, this person behind me saw it. Here's his information." We talk about it to a group, we talk about it to a library, a historical society.
Sure.
Believe it believe it or not, I mean, when we first started, it was all, laughter, chuckle, and then people starting to take it a little more seriously now. Um, Even Bigfoot, when we started Bigfoot way years ago, we were kind of, nah, no such thing as Bigfoot. Then Finding Bigfoot comes along. Then all of a sudden, which it's okay to talk about it's okay to have a town hall and people come to you. Now, kind of like my thoughts on Finding Bigfoot, good, bad. Bad because I think it portrays like all we do is go out and beat on
Right. Yeah.
trees and go, "Oh," and, every time you go out, you're gonna see something the exact opposite of true. I mean, I've only had the time myself and my organizations were out, one response from doing that, one, and that was down Beaver Creek, and that's, like, my favorite place, but it was just one single, uh, I howled, and there's a "huh," and then boom, was it. But so, they're not like today, I always say that today's researchers, they go out, "Oh, there's a tree like this and a tree like it's gotta be Bigfoot." We always say, did you see Bigfoot do it?" No, then, it could be probably weather phenomenon first. Other people do that also, um, especially during and all this, ice storms, boom, taking trees, can bring them down, tree falls. I mean, we just had we live in like a holler, and we just had this big dead tree about a month ago come down. We knew it was gonna come down, but, it finally came down, and it happens. I mean, these winds whip through these valleys sometimes in these hollows, and it could be nasty. So, um, what we do is if there's an area somebody said that they seen something, okay, if we see a couple weird things, maybe some bows, twists, which I don't think we've ever found a twist that looked like it could have been done with something with two hands.
Yeah.
We take pictures, we note it. We don't really put it out there because a lot of people, "Oh, yeah, look, there's 100 Bigfoots here. They're building slides, they're building tree houses like Planet of the Apes." It's like, no, it just and I think you have to be real sensible about a lot of this stuff. I do believe all these phenomena exist. I don't wanna be please, I don't wanna sound negative about this stuff either. But
I don't
I
think
think
you sound negative at all. I
okay.
think everything you're saying is exactly the mentality that we have to have
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
through
and
this. Absolutely.
y we've worked with a lot of great people over the years, and, um, if they say something too, like, "Hey, we think this is out there," we can't get and I always tell our listeners at these library things and conferences, I say, "I'm gonna say I don't know a lot," or Terry and I are gonna say, "I don't know a lot," and I would rather tell you that from the beginning. I don't want you walking in here saying, "Oh, this guy thinks he has all the answers," because I don't even know if I'm asking the right question sometimes, honestly.
That's
And
a really good point. Yeah. Isn't that the
I am
truth, though?
100% honest about
Yeah.
what we present, okay? And, if people believe it, good. If they don't, I'm not gonna take it personally anymore. I mean, I hit that 60 mark a year and a half ago, and I really don't care about a lot of this stuff like I used to. I really don't. You have to kinda brush it off.
No, you're totally right, and I think that's at this point, especially with the infusion of AI and things like that into our
Oh my
field,
god, yeah.
it's yeah, like, I mean, at this point, even video evidence is highly questionable, which is
Yes.
it's so painful because, that used to be something that we could start to dissect and gravitate to and pull apart, and now it's like, I don't know if unless I catch it, I don't know. I can't say I can't even debunk it because I'm going, I don't know what if I'm looking at something that's even a real place. Like, it's really, really wild. But out
Yeah.
of all the encounters, I mean, and you've documented so many with Bigfoot and Dogman, with the Dogman encounters that you've heard, has there been any that have really stuck out to you that have hung on?
Well, the one we took, in Beaver County, we actually are my wife Terry and I are actually from Beaver County, Pennsylvania, which literally is like, maybe a half hour from where we are now. So we didn't move that far, okay? we just moved where it was cheaper we could live.
That's fair. I hear
you.
you.
But we received one that there was these two younger kids, and they were walking with, I think it was a German Shepherd, and all of a sudden there was a hill, woods in their hill, and all of a sudden the German Shepherd looks like this, looks up the hill, shakes, goes down on all fours. This is the German Shepherd who, like they said, this dog wasn't afraid of nothing. This dog was petrified of that thing that looked like, they said, a wolf on two legs. And I'm like, wow. And both of them, I actually talked to both eyewitnesses, which was cool. I talked to the one that says, can you give me your friend's number? They said the exact same thing. And that's what I wanted too. I wanted verification.
Sure.
And they said the exact same story. They said it looked like a wolf on two legs. And they said their dog was petrified. It was actually shaking.
Wow. Yeah.
And it wasn't like this thing was super close, maybe 70 yards, 65 yards. But even that, it looked huge. That's, you take a football field, 60, 70 yards. That's still a little distance, and it was up on the hill. So that could have made it look bigger. They were down there at an angle. And that was one of the ones that really wow, there's an animal involved who was clearly petrified of this apex predator, which we call it, and the other good one of I heard of Barton Nunley, of course.
Yes.
And I don't know, have you ever had him on your show?
I've not. We differ in our opinions about Dogman quite a bit, so I haven't. But I definitely would love to have him on for sure.
Yeah, he said the one, and I always remember this. It was in one of his books where there was a farmer in a field, and I could think he was on his tractor mowing, and he looks and sees this shimmer. It's kind of like if you're driving down the road on a hot summer day, and you see that shimmer way in the distance. Apparently this dog-like creature stepped out, looked around real quick, and it looked like it sniffed the air really quick, and then it saw him, and it looked like it growled and stepped back into it, and it disappeared.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, if you're asking me, do I think all of these creatures are, I don't want to say real, but out there all the time, flesh and blood? You kind of whoa, I think people are seeing this. Somehow, some of them could be this interdimensional type thing. And I know with a lot of people, if you say that, they get angry. I'm like, I don't know. I bring it up to my audiences. I'm like, this is what some people have said to us. I'm on the fence totally because I don't know. I don't know.
Sure.
I want it to be a physical creature like a bear. I don't want it to be this thing that goes zip, and it's gone and you can't get it, because we have no prayer of ever getting any evidence if it is that. And I think a lot of, we call ourselves cryptozoologists, okay, quote unquote. And we research as cryptozoologists, we're looking for the footprints. We're looking for physical evidence of a creature that is out there. Okay. Do we 100% believe that? I'll say, no, I can't. I can't honestly look at you and say, hey, I honestly believe that they're interdimensional. But then I say, but you know what? There's some of these cases, footprints stop in the middle of a field, lights in the sky. Some of it just doesn't jive if it was just a flesh and blood creature. Again, I don't care if I'm wrong, and I'll tell you that right up front. I've kind of perfected it and kind of made a good career of being wrong with stuff, but I don't care if I'm wrong. I speak the facts, believe or disbelieve. Don't shoot me.
You're the messenger. You're the messenger.
I don't. Yeah. I really don't. We've been made fun of and laughed at, and okay. Now it's I don't care. We're not doing this forever. We're on the twilight of our careers, so we're not doing this forever. So
and it comes back to people that are laughing about it. Well, then what is it then? That's really what it comes back to. Is then, well, then what is it? I was way on the fence a number of years ago about the interdimensional idea, and I would have been the first person to have argued to the death that some of this stuff was flesh and blood. I really, and as this has gone on, and the more encounters like you that you've recorded, or experiences that I've had, and so on and so forth, there is definitely, and I don't proclaim to know this one way or the other about Sasquatch, because it's as many times as I've done Sasquatch work, I've lent more to Dogman than Bigfoot, but I can am 95% there that they are non-physical of some sort, or that they have some sort of I don't know whether interdimensional is the right answer, but
Yeah, or the right word. I think a lot of people get
right.
caught up
Yeah, right.
on I know in this field especially, Lord knows, I've been called out for, using a wrong term according to them. Uh, yeah, terms are terms. I mean, I've never gotten, I've gotten into some arguments with people. They really they challenge you, they get on you. I'm like, call it what you want, interdimensional, quantum. I don't care. Uh,
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I
always
know.
say, "Good,
No, oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, just to your point was that there the number of encounters, and experiences, that I've seen or that I've had, I've being somebody who's led groups out and whatnot to educate and so on and so forth, and what we've seen as groups, there to me is no way that there's not some sort of non-physical quality about what we're seeing. I remember the one instance, I was working with a group. We were out in a hotspot area here in Alberta, and the area, the dogmen that were there, we got to know quite well because we were out there almost every weekend, and they were quite enthusiastic about the attention, about wanting to come out, and we would have the groups where we would walk the trails, and we would hear and see them paralleling the group. And what was so funny was that I would stop and, start to talk about, say, for example, like, understanding things like tree breaks, or understanding things. I'd stop to tell them some sort of a story, or inform them about something, and they would stop. The footsteps would stop, and they would wait, and they would listen, and then they would come with us to and everybody would hear them and see them. They'd see them watching. And there was a moment I remember where we had one lady who was at the front of one of our groups, and for whatever reason, I don't think they liked her. And I don't know why, but they just the energy just wasn't right. And it could have been just what she brought there. Who knows? But we were walking down the path, and we could hear the one, and he was quite close to the one side of the group. And oftentimes you would hear them but not see them. They were I don't want to say cloaked, but they were so well camouflaged, and it was so dark, that oftentimes you couldn't see them, but you'd hear them. And very close to her, and it was witnessed by all of the group around her, the guests around her. She got barked at, and it was like this sort of wolves have this bark that they do. They don't bark like a dog, but it's like a woof
yeah,
noise, and they use it to communicate with each other. Just on a like the actual physical wolves use it to communicate with each other, but it
mhm.
was that noise. And in that instance, this burst of was like smoke or mist or something exploded, and she had her camera running, and we caught it on camera.
Wow, wow,
This explosion, and it was almost like the way I read the situation, where it was like he sort of roughed at her, and then and just poof, was just it disappeared into this mist, which I know the mist has been reported in other dogman encounters and whatnot as well throughout the year, including like Beast of Bray Road, where people have said, they've caught mist on camera, and then the food's gone, and so on and so forth.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it was so interesting, and they're just almost like 1 foot in, 1 foot out all the time. And I think that's where, for me, it's sort of that consciousness and cryptozoology begins to really, really connect and blend.
And what I always say too, it's like, okay, if let's say we think this thing is interdimensional, or my kind of like a working theory is there has to be some kind of energy transfer, something for it to slip in and out.
Right.
So a lot of times, I mean, I'll carry my tri-field meter with me, or an EMF, and as we're walking through the woods, nothing's ever happened, okay? But let's say you come across a place, maybe there's a geomagnetic anomaly there, portal. Use your term, insert
Yeah.
your term here. But
Works for me.
yeah, or maybe they need that. Like I'll tell you the one thing about some of our sightings, a weird aspect of it, and I don't know if this ever happened to you. Some of our sightings, encounters, or eyewitness, because we've never seen one right up front. They seem to take place near power substations. Or one report happened that was of a smaller one who appeared right before a severe thunderstorm. Thunderstorms all over, and then it poured down rain, and this thing come out. Now, does it need some kind of energy to appear? And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying do they? But I do like to throw that out because I've talked to a lot of dogman researchers, and they said, we never heard that. But again, maybe it's location specific, like PA and Ohio. I don't know. But it's just, all I can tell you is I think it was like getting 3 or 4 reports. That's it. But
well,
still.
I'll confirm that it's definitely been that way here.
Okay.
I've had in every encounter, it's been in areas with weird electromagnetics that I cannot account for.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
Yep, and areas where there is nothing underground. I mean, these areas are in the middle of nowhere, so you're not looking at wiring. There's no streams from what I'm aware of underneath, because I know like that'll produce electromagnetic spikes if we got running water underneath. None that I'm aware of, but weird, like you're saying, just weird electromagnetic or extra high electromagnetics for whatever reason. And I know it's like, and it seems bizarre because here, the meters are designed for something to pick up on something very, very specific and measurable. And, there was many times where, we've been walking around or whatnot. And we actually in tracking the Wendigo, I took them out to one of the locations where I had the weird experience with like the quote unquote portal thing, whatever that was. But the same thing where we were seeing these spikes in EMF, and then they'd be gone, just gone. And you couldn't get them back. It was just like these things were kind of popping up almost like in pockets. Now, I had on a little while ago, and people that listen to the show will remember my friend Joe Turry, he's a filmmaker with Red Room Media. And he had gone out to a farm. Bryce Edwards?
I heard the name, but I don't know him personally. No.
Yeah, you probably know the name. So I don't know him personally either, but I know him through Joe. And they went out to his farm, which has been a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings. And they were getting the same thing. They started using a lightning detector. And I thought this was really, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this because I'd never heard of this before. But they were using a lightning detector and I had to look up how they were used because I didn't even know what they were measuring. I had no
curious.
clue.
I got to look into this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I had no idea how they worked or anything, so I had to like Google it. But they measure bursts of intense light.
Okay.
And I thought that's really intriguing. Because light's been a big factor in the things that I've been experiencing and so many other people. And they were getting this lightning detector, and there was no storms in the area. There was nothing. I mean, they're in the middle of the woods, and it was going off. And I thought, that's very interesting. So I wonder what spectrum it's picking up on, that it's picking up on these flashes
exactly. See, now
right?
Now I got to research all this now.
Yeah, and I'm so curious. Like, if you find anything extra, like, you have to tell me, because I thought this was such an interesting way of going about this. But like you were saying, I think there is a connection to these environmental factors coupled in with these experiences, because they seem to be going hand in hand on so many occasions.
I think too, like on some of it too, we research the orbs. We call them light spheres. Now they're calling them now. I guess the chicky term, I guess, or chicy term now, plasmoids.
The new fandangled term.
The new fandangled word, plasmoids. It's wow. It's like a lot to take in. We start researching them. We have a little project we call LAE, Light Anomaly Exploration, and we take reports, and we do have a frequency machine, which when we go out, I think we only did it like once last year or whatever. This is called Spooky 2. I don't know if you ever see those little boxes, Spooky 2. We got a special enhanced thing that takes those vibrations and shoots them out. But just wondering if certain frequencies can attach to this stuff. I don't know if you watch Skinwalker Ranch at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, or what we call is rocketry 101. So, it's just like
Rocketry, I
shooting
like
out a
that.
rocket in the mesa. Okay. But uh, there seems to be like a lot of this too, I think is energy. It's something have to do with energy. Some of these, like, for the spheres, we think it has to do with solar energy, sun weather from the sun. You get the discharges, you get electromagnetic storms. You get all that hitting the earth too, and maybe if it hits the earth at a certain time when uh, at a place, maybe it has quartz or crystals in the ground. There may be tons of factors we'll never know, but it is another thing to look into, especially some of these weird. And I do consider the dogmen on the stranger side of what we do. Winged entities is one we do a lot, and I remember a researcher, I forget her name now, out of Missouri, that they were having some of these uh, winged entity sightings. And this is really interesting. So there'd be a railroad, okay, by a river, railroad by a river. The high tension lines or the power lines too. You got the train going on. You got all this energy going one way. Boom. Maybe that could make them appear again. Maybe far fetched. It may be totally, but rivers, constant movement, motion. Those tracks, the railroad tracks, the high tension wires, maybe that's like a conduit, a gateway. Maybe they can come out of there. You say some of these things and I'm like, I don't know. It's just something you sometimes you want to throw out a bunch of stuff. Maybe somebody else picks up on it and runs with it or adds to it. So that's just
Well,
my.
I think at this point in time, I think throwing out different theories is what we have to do. I think we're so far behind when it comes to so much of this that's kind of where we have to go. Is okay. Like what do we know, or what can we suppose, and can we build something from that? Can we have a groundwork of something and build from it? I used to. Years ago, I was teaching a class down in the Edmonton River Valley, and one of the things that I used to put people through was I would give them some dowsing rods, and I would have them go around this Tai Chi circle, and with their eyes closed, only allowing the rods to guide them around the circle. And the point of the lesson was, your mind is a lot powerful. It's not the rods, it's you, but it's like your mind is so much more powerful than what you are thinking it is. Because here these people are like, oh no, the rods took me around. I'm like, it's not the rods. It's your subconscious being able to do this. And I always wondered about things like, for example, like ley lines.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the things that you're talking about with, like, us, people just putting down railroads and things like that, is how much of that is not necessarily because there's, even energy there that was there before people, but rather the people that are constantly going over and over and over and over these lines in routes of travel that is perpetuating, like, I'm using the term energy so loosely because I don't know what else you'd call it, but almost leaving that energetic imprint. And does that then inspire people to put railroads down? And does that then inspire people? So, like, I think all of these things that you're talking about have to be put into the pile at least, and put a pin in it to go, is there something special about these spaces, these liminal spaces, that these are seemingly becoming hotspots for some of this activity?
Yeah, I mean, that could be. And like I said, just so many, and I love hearing people's theories. One thing you'll never hear me say, this person's a whack job. I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'll try to expound on it with some of the stuff we've done. I always like to add whatever, like, our thing is, whatever we get or whatever, even like research method, my kind of like my goal is, okay, that's awesome. What can I add to it? The people, what can I do? What can I add to? What can we add to it? And maybe that's all it'll take, this one idea, and maybe 40 people, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get that one haha, then we got a shot. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's
It
interesting.
it is, and I mean, it's for me because, at the core of everything, I'm a consciousness researcher, and to me, what's so incredible about all of this is that it just keeps coming back to that, over and over, whether it be Bigfoot, whether it be it's just it's it's an intelligence that's coming from somewhere. Well, then what is it? And I guess that's how I've kind of approached this, and that's why, like, these theories don't seem crazy to me at all because I see this as a consciousness problem rather than a we're going to go out and find the big hairy animal problem. It's like there's clearly something larger that's going on. Like you were saying with some of the Bigfoot tracks where they just stop in the middle of the field and disappear.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
not me saying that. That's other. I mean, we found it's like imprints, like just one.
yeah.
Where's the rest? Where does it go? I mean, a skeptic will say, "Well, they backtrack." I'm like, so you're going to get a snowy field. You're going to have a Bigfoot walk in the middle of that at night, and then it's going to say, "Wait a minute, I want to backtrack perfectly in my steps." That's almost as ridiculous as some of these other things. I mean, yeah, animals do backtrack, but you know, you would probably see if a Bigfoot with a huge foot and stuff, you would probably see a double. It almost be impossible to. I think. I mean, again, like I said, I could be wrong. That's fine, but
What do you think is the most at this point? Because I mean, especially with the formulation of AI, like we've talked about in the field, and so much that has come in. What do you think right now is the biggest obstacle for evidence gathering in regards to things like Dogman? What do you where do you think the biggest boulder in our path is?
well, the two is what you gotta get a body or DNA. I don't see any other way. Then they could say, "Well, how'd you get the DNA? Did you follow certain procedures? Is it contaminated? Blah 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 blah." You'd almost have to have a body, and you'd have to have it scientifically studied. And I don't advocate for any of these things to be shot or killed. So please, if anyone's listening, no. Um, Maybe you find a dead one. Maybe one gets hit, dies of natural causes, and Mother Nature hasn't totally disposed of it yet. Maybe you get lucky like that, but there's obstacles to that too. It's like, okay, and then you get on the, I don't want to say conspiracy side, but if someone were to find the body, will the government come and get it? Is the government involved? Some people say some of these dogmen are government creations. I've heard that too, because some of them are, I don't know what the percentage of them have seen close to military bases. It's just another maybe piece to the puzzle, and I don't advocate it or dismiss it. It's just there.
Yeah,
Lots.
yeah. I remember Linda Godfrey talking about that, where there
Hmm.
was a number of encounters, and it makes me wonder if it is curiosity too on their part. They're seeing a group of people and they're interested in what's going on. Because so many of the Dogman encounters that I've noticed involve people like, for example, that are camping. And they're in their tent. They don't hear anything until they're in their tent zipped up, and then the next thing you know, they're sniffing around, like they're right there right away. Like, what are you guys doing? And they're sniffing at the tent and sniffing at the food and sniffing at,
Yeah, I
like,
know.
they're just so fascinated with whatever people are doing. And I know here in Canada, like I did a lot of background research and whatnot, and the history of them here, it goes quite far back to the point where there's talk of them having trade relationships with First Nations, like long before the settlers came. And then when the settlers did come, that a lot of the First Nations actually told the settlers, "Don't bother them. Don't bother them. They're fine. Just leave them alone." And of course, like, that's not what happened. They were hassled as well. Um, or whatnot, which leads me to one of the theories. I know there's been a couple of people that have come out with encounters saying, "Oh, I pulled out the Bible and I started reading from the Bible," and they left. And it's like, well, if they've got this tie to colonialism, they probably did leave. They're really, I never have gotten the impression they're interested in that kind of aggressive connection. If I think the energy in which I don't think it has anything to do with the Bible. I think it's the energy you're putting out. If you're trying to ward them off, they're not going to be interested. They're going to go. So what kind of what I guess that brings me to my next question. Long story, but is how much of people's energy and their the presence and intention that they bring to this field and their encounters with these things, how much do you think that dictates the type of encounter they have?
I think they can read. I don't want to say maybe read your thoughts. I can feel they probably can read your energy. If you're out there with guns, it's not going to come around.
Yeah.
If you're out there like without guns or one, I think if my friend Jamie, he says, if you know, no matter what you do, go out with pure intentions, like love, pure intentions, curiosity. You may encounter one of these things. But yeah, if you go out with, I got to kill one of these things, I think they're going to sense, even by your actions, because if these things are anything like Bigfoot, they watch you. They know when you come in the forest. They know what you're doing, why you're there. A quick little story. You'll say you might have never heard this story. So when we say, hey, if you let's say we're going to Beaver Creek, we're going to go across the creek. They know you're there. They know you're coming already. So there's a guy, you probably heard of Rupert Sheldrake. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love Rupert's work. He's wonderful.
And he had the book, what? The Sense of Being Stared At?
Yes.
Remember? And the one, and I have this book somewhere in the 2,000 some books we have probably.
Yeah, he's a fantastic researcher.
He said that there was a photographer in Africa. And you may even remember the story. He was taking pictures of these pack of monkeys. I don't know what kind they were. He said, all of a sudden, all of them stood up and looked in one direction. And then he said they turned around and they ran. And this photographer said, I got to see what's happening. Something coming. He waited about an hour, apparently. And this little safari came with a couple guys with guns and that, with the people carrying an hour. These things knew and heard or sensed that. And this is a pack of animals. If these creatures, which I do believe they're much more intelligent than even humans.
Yeah.
If their senses go beyond that. So you're in the woods, they're a mile over there. It's like, okay, someone's coming. I really do believe that. And I try to tell that story all as much as I can. And people are like, wow. I'm like, yeah, it's not my story. It's in a book,
Yeah. I think that is so impactful though, because I think that's exactly it has exact applications to what we're discussing. And like you, I think there's, there could be like a telepathy aspect in terms of, we know even with animals, there's something going on between them, especially some of them that are completely nonverbal. I think back to, I think it was on one of National Geographic specials. I think it was on their second Planet Earth series that they did, and it was a phenomenal sequence. They had actually the photographers had gone out to film some type of iguana. It wasn't a Galapagos iguana, but it was some sort of iguana that lived by the water, and there was a lot of snakes that lived around there, and the snakes never touched the iguanas because they were too big. It was just too much for them. They were relatively small snakes. And they ended up filming, and this is film footage. If people want to look at it, they can find it on YouTube, and it's everywhere. These snakes figured out how to take down one of these iguanas, and they began to pack hunt. And they packed hunt. Not only did they didn't just gang up on it. They had one snake that chased the iguana into sort of a culvert. And then they had groups of them stationed along the culvert in groups that would come down and chase them and push them further down into this dead end. And then at the end, they had a group that was waiting for them, which they then, were able to attack this lizard together and get their meal.
Wow.
Now, first of all, you've got this particular species of snake were loners. The snakes don't hunt together because they eat their food whole. So, they can't share. This involved strategic coordination and planning and you name it. Well, they don't speak. So how is it that, and they're not making noises. So how is it that they're arranging an intricate plan like that to completely restructure how they hunt in order to, I mean, it was phenomenal. So anyway, it brought up so many questions for me as somebody who not only has a snake, but is really interested in this idea that, is there some sort of, how are they communicating? Is this connecting through broader consciousness? Are they, what is it that's going on? And I think to your story, that's what it brings to mind, is that they're maybe drawing something from something in broader consciousness, rather than, the logical brain looking around and going, okay, well, there's no human with a gun here.
But there is a question I have to ask you real quick is, what's your thoughts on the photo of the beast of seven shoots in Quebec? Anything to it, or you?
That was, I think that was so interesting.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if something was caught. I mean, we've got a lot here in Canada. I haven't seen any reason to discredit the photo at this point. I haven't seen anything come out to say, this is exactly what it was. I mean, we don't have wild animals that look like that here. The closest that we would have would be a bear, and that's not a bear. Like, it's
No, it's
clearly not the facial
looks like it's
structure of a
holding
bear.
something too, doesn't it?
It totally does. It's got something under its arm.
Yes.
And bears don't hold things under their arms either. So I've seen a lot of bears. None of them are doing that. So I think there's something to it. I mean, could it be some elaborate Photoshop job? Sure. But I mean, if that is what it says, what people say it is, which is a genuine photograph, then to me, there's something to it. I've never seen anything like that here in Canada. And interestingly enough, too, it doesn't look like a dogman to me either. So that brings a whole other question as to exactly what the hell it is.
Yeah. No, is that far from you?
Very far. Yeah, that's the other side of the country from me.
Oh, it's the other side. Okay, because I'm not familiar too much with Canada. So
yeah, no, I'm in Alberta, and that was Quebec, which is all the way east.
Okay.
So, but I mean, here in Alberta, I mean, we've got so many cryptids and creatures here, and I mean, it's such a hot spot here for everything. I love it here. I mean, it's just any creature, weird thing you possibly want, we've got it. So yes.
No, another thing I had to ask is, my friend is really into the Wendigo. What is it? Is it more of a spiritual, or is it an actual creature? What do you, or is it both?
That's a question we've been trying to answer for a really long time. I think it's definitely real, whatever it is. That's one thing I feel confident enough to at least say there's some phenomenon that's going on that is not explainable by psychology. That I can tell you for sure, because there's so much that's like aspects of this. You can blow holes in the psychology side of it, as it's unbelievable. There's something going on. To me, the way I kind of look at it is, I think it's some sort of entity, maybe something that's almost like my guess would be like a thought form that becomes, the thought becomes a thinker, and has manifested from,
Like a tulpa or something like that.
Something like that, like that's come from periods of trauma, like we see with negative entities, where it's like you've got periods of trauma that seem to produce a thinking entity that's never really been a person. It's never been human. It's something else. That's the closest my understanding can wrap around it. But I mean, again, I definitely can't say like I know what it is. It's a weird phenomenon, and I mean,
it is weird. Yeah,
it's something we like here. People respect heavily, because like there's still encounters that have happened here in Alberta, and it's still taken very seriously. It's definitely. I don't think it falls into the range of cryptid. It's something else. Yeah, it's something. It's another type of phenomenon that I don't think anybody's been able to put a pin in. We still keep trying. I don't know. I don't even know if we have the understanding enough about what it is to be able to do that. But fascinating subject. Well, Brian,
we have a friend who is very heavily into the Wendigo. I should hook you up with her, and then she can.
We're always interested in new stories and new connections and all of that. And it's just, yeah, Such an interesting field. Thank you so much for doing this today. I
But yeah,
so
I had
appreciate
fun.
this. Oh, me too. This was great. I would love to have you back
Sure, sure.
at some point because I feel like there's so much more to talk about with this subject, and I love cryptids and dogmen and all of that. They're just amazing beings that we
If
just
we
don't
get
know enough
any
about.
more, yeah, if we get any more info on any more dogman sightings or anything new turns up, and now I got to look at what's that lightning detector?
You've got to look into it. And as I say, let me know if you decide to go out and use it and give it a try because I was
Okay.
fascinated.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
hopefully it's not expensive. That's cool though. I'm gonna look it up.
Me
It could
too.
help us with our stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Sure, yeah, just let me know when it.
Well, Brian is such a blast to talk to. I knew this was going to be such an interesting conversation, and there's nothing like just getting down and dirty with researchers from all over the place and talking shop. And I feel like that's what this was. And I love it. You know, up here in Canada, we don't get to do that a whole lot. So it's such a pleasure to have people that have been in this research for so long and are so humble and so kind, but have just the coolest stories. And one of the things about Brian that I really love is that much like some of the other people you guys have gotten to know very well on this show, like Chad Lewis, he is actually actively seeking stories from people like you guys who have had really weird encounters. So if you guys want to actually reach out to Brian, you can reach out to him at centerforcryptostudies@gmail.com. So he holds everything in strict confidence. He's not going to blab your story all over the place without asking you first. But man, it's so neat to see so many people actively going out and collecting what I think is eventually going to be our scientific history once we begin to understand this as we go along on a deeper level. You know, every time I go out with colleagues, one of the people I enjoy going out with the most is Jason Hewlett, who's up here in Canada and over in BC. And we learn something every single time. You know, it's such a vast area of knowledge, whether you're looking at Bigfoot or looking at Dogman or just interested in consciousness studies all around. It's such an incredibly humbling experience to be able to go out and do this. And it's amazing. So I highly encourage people, if you've got a story, get a hold of Brian, let him know, add to the knowledge base of what's being built in this community, because it's all of these stories that end up coming together, and you can then begin to dissect things like patterns and begin to understand movement of some of these creatures, behavior patterns, all of these things that, even though the story might seem trivial, may actually really add to the knowledge base of researchers, just in the same way that we would be adding to the knowledge base of animal studies or anything like that. Something so small can actually turn out to be something really incredible. So thank you for joining me on this eerie expedition, my dear listeners. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends. Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and the 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knutson, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.